Occupational deprivation and wellness implications during incarceration and reentry. Objectives. So here we're going to highlight what we're about to go into, and the first thing will be to identify and define what occupational deprivation is. And once we do that, we're going to discuss how occupational deprivation affects the components of wellness for those that are incarcerated and for those that are preparing for reentry. Now, what reentry means are the folks that are coming out of incarceration and they are re-entering back into society. So are we preparing people for re-entry? And we're going to provide research to support the need for occupational enrichment for the incarcerated, because there's a misunderstanding sometimes of what the roles are for incarceration, the penal system, and things like that. People look at it and say, well, this is a means of punishment. So if they're being punished for what they did wrong, then why are we providing jobs, and why are we letting them watch TV, and why do they play basketball, and what, so the concept is, and the argument is not that we punish people for years and years and days and hours as these things progress on end, but that we remove them as a society from society, but still allow them to re-enter society. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then we show supporting organizations' role in occupational enrichment. And there are some really wonderful organizations out there that provide occupational enrichment, and we want to highlight them, the function and the role that they have within the penal system and other forms of incarceration, and what reentry looks like for the people who experience these programs. And then there will be a learning activity to help provoke thought and engagement at the end of the discussion. So what is occupational deprivation? Occupational deprivation is defined as the influence of an external agency or circumstance that keeps a person from acquiring, using, or enjoying occupations over an extended period of time. So let's look at the external agency. In this case, it is the incarcerating body. What are the circumstances? Circumstances are that an individual was convicted of a crime and is now under the control of the external agency, and it keeps people from acquiring, using, and enjoying occupations. Now, I don't think we need to start a conversation or an argument about how many people outside of incarceration enjoy or don't enjoy their job. That's another means of occupational deprivation that should be addressed, but here in prison or in other forms of incarceration, acquiring skill sets is very difficult to do, and we're going to look at how we can help to ameliorate that situation and what companies out there are becoming helpful. And the U.S. government itself seeing a means to help the people who are incarcerated to do better, to feel better, to have a sense of purpose in their daily lives, but also to prepare those individuals for re-entry into society. What are the external agencies of correctional incarceration? So the first one would be jails. And jails seem to be a bit transient in nature. Now you look at jails, it's the entry point. So think of it as a distribution hub where people are filtered from courtrooms to community programs to correctional institutions, and then also holding offenders who have been sentenced to shorter terms, so like 1 to 2 years. Then you have prisons. And prisons are going to create a more socially stable environment with less movement in and out. Prisons in the U.S. and other countries are mandated to provide a basic level of psychiatric service And so you will see things like this: secure forensic hospitals. So prisons can have these and jails can have these, and they can be their own standing facility. And secure forensic hospitals are for offenders receiving psychiatric treatment in a correctional institution. So many correctional facilities do offer opportunity to do work. They offer them in food services. They offer it in laundry services and in janitorial services. Now, these are limited opportunities that those that are incarcerated get, and if you get it, sometimes these are good gigs because it allows you just to have a little respite from the every day-to-day life that takes place in a prison. However, these jobs can become mundane in nature, and they're not necessarily fulfilling, and so a lot of times we'll still see the same issues occur when it comes to occupational deprivation. So they're talking about occupational deprivation. We see things, these programs that are food services or laundry services or even janitorial services, but according to Haney, within prisons, this lack of meaningful program significantly limits the opportunities to develop habits and routines in the positive pro-social activities. And I quote here from Haney's conversation that he had in his notes. It says, among other things, penal institutions require inmates to relinquish the freedom and autonomy to make their own choices and decisions, and this process requires what is a painful adjustment to most people. I don't think any of us would be really surprised. There's going to be a painful adjustment to go into the prison system. So in that painful adjustment going in there, clearly there's a learning curve. There's the removal of freedom. There's the removal of society. There's the removal of family. All of these are part of what is expected in incarceration. And yet these are things that need to be overcome as well. And what we mean by that is in the hopes that not everybody is serving a life sentence. We understand that people are going to come out of prison. Now, when they come out of prison, what are we setting them up for? Are we setting them up to come back into society and to help with society and be an active part of society? Or are we looking at them and saying, let's just punish you for X number of years by separating you from all of these different parts of your life? And when you get back into society, we expect that you adjust and you behave now. And that becomes difficult. And the difficulty is that when you look at somebody who comes back that's ill-prepared to reentry, think about the trans-theoretical model we discussed in our class, in Dr. West's class. Trans-theoretical model, you've got this pre-contemplation phase, which means you're not thinking about it. So when people re-enter out of into society, out of the prison system, so they leave the prison system, they come back in, pre-contemplation is committing a crime. Like, not even contemplating it, not even thinking of it, not crossing my mind. I just spent X amount of time in jail or prison. Not going to happen. But did we set them up for success with that? So suddenly the contemplation phase starts to come in, and they're thinking about, maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea, but maybe it's my only choice. So it's interesting, a role reversal of the trans-theoretical model, and instead of something that people are thinking about doing that's positive for them, it's possible to turn that around and apply that to this particular scenario where people are considering doing things they shouldn't be doing because it's what they're used to, and because they've been isolated from society for so long, they don't know how to adjust upon re-entry. So the question then becomes, what do we do? What do we prepare them for? These are correctional facilities, and really they look like punishment facilities. So what corrective means are going on? How are we able to provide correction for the individuals who are re-entering back into society? This is discussion that needs to be had, and we're going to explore a little bit more. When people are looking to leave incarceration, they're pretty happy. They're looking forward. They're counting down the days, but it's not always as nice outside as people expect. They can experience depression, incredible amounts of frustration. They can experience violence, anger, rioting, and even suicide. So, what are some of the barriers to employment that people that were incarcerated are going to face as they reenter? So, the first one is the stigma of being a criminal. And imagine being an employer if you found out that somebody was that in your employee and that they are or had been a criminal and they had been convicted of a crime and they had gone to prison. What type of stigma is going to be there? The second one is trust. It'll be a trust issue. There's a stigma that goes along with it that may be perceptually bad for business, but then there is a trust issue. What did you go to prison for? You've served your time, you're free, I get it, but I don't trust you, and that makes it very uncomfortable for the employer. So how can we help to remove the stigma? How can we help to allow employers to feel like they can trust more? And of course, a big concern is going to be the repeat offender. Are you going to do it again? So these are the barriers to employment that that research has showed that has become a big problem. So what we do is we try to find some ways to better that and help, because I understand that employment is a big deal. We'll look at employment or occupation as part of the health cycle in the wellness wheel. So this is the wellness wheel, and these are 8 different sections in the wellness wheel. So when we look at wellness, and we've talked about in our classes before, that it's more than just not being sick. So what are some of the components of it? One is occupational, but how does the occupational component help with life? And we look at occupational deprivation, you see that financial and occupational are not the same thing. They do happen to be right next to each other on the wellness wheel. So you could be financially set and not have a job, not have an occupation, and be unwell in your balance of your life. But let's look at prison. Look at this. We've got somebody that's occupationally deprived. We've got somebody that's socially deprived, environmentally deprived, emotionally deprived, oftentimes intellectually deprived, and they're not in their environment and have a hard time maybe maintaining their values or being associated with those with like values. So spiritually, they're deprived. Maybe physically, maybe not. So we'll give you one. Being imprisoned really doesn't help anybody be well. So what are the things that can be done here? We have a quote that says, "Human health is linked to the ability of people to orchestrate their everyday occupations of work, play, self-care, and rest by making choices about what, when, and where, and whom you have activities done." So if we lose the opportunity or the ability to orchestrate what we do for work, what we do for play, how we take care of ourselves and we rest, and make choices about what, when, where, with whom these activities are being done, then we lose a large part of who we are. And you can imagine that re-entry into society becomes very tough. So tough, in fact, that we lose light, we lose color, and we lose outlook. And the wellness wheel that should spin in balance starts to spin out of control. Unicor was established by Congress in 1934, and the idea behind of it was an inmate release program where it prepared inmates to re-enter into society and to have a skill set upon re-entry. And there's also a goal to reduce crime, not just out in society, but also to reduce crime within the prisons themselves. According to the Bureau of Prisons fact sheet on Unicor, tax dollars received for its operations, 0 tax dollars. That means that this on-the-job training doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. The percentage of former offenders less likely to recidivate, which is return to deviant behavior and return back to prison as a result of participating in Unicor and the vocational training programs that surround it. So they are 24% less likely to reoffend. So 24% is definitely showing that the occupational enrichment programs that Unicor presents are indeed life-changing. And an unemployed ex-offender is 3 times more likely to return to prison than one who is gainfully employed. And the amount of money federal offenders contribute annually from Unicor earnings, set financial obligations such as court-ordered fines, child support, and victim restitution is about $1 to $2 million annually. And to go along with this, they can also send a portion of their pay, and they oftentimes choose to, send money back home to their families to help support their families. And if we're looking at all these people who are paying $1 to $2 million annually in restitution and child support and things like that, I think it's very important also to look at the typical hourly pay, which is about 23 cents to $1.15 per hour. The likelihood of folks that participate in the Unicor programs that are more likely to find and maintain employment are 14%. And the participation rate of those that are incarcerated is 8%, with a whopping 25,000 inmate individuals that are on the wait list to participate in these Unicor programs. Now, what that shows you, if we go back to our adult learning, you talk about self-directed. These individuals want to be a part of something greater. They have motivation. When we discuss the things that in our upcoming lecture in the book called Make It Stick, there are the 3 different major components of motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And I believe that what we see here, if we look at Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's research, is that individuals want autonomy, which they are allowed in these programs. They want mastery, which they can do in these vocational programs that allows them to learn a skill, develop a skill, and master a skill. And it gives them a sense of purpose, that they're doing something, they're providing for themselves, doing something for themselves, doing something back to society, for society, whether it's a desk or electronics or textiles or whatever it is that they're producing. It also gives them a sense of purpose when you look at earning money and then giving money back, so providing money to their family members, restitution for families of victims, court fees. They are doing their part to pay back And there's another very important component that goes along with this, and there are other realities that should be pointed out. And according to the Bureau of Prisons fact sheet, it says that 1 in 28 children has a parent behind bars and often struggle with anxiety, they struggle with depression, they have learning problems, they have aggression problems, and it undermines his or her chances for success, and that becomes problematic for us as individuals, as a society, to look at the things that go on with those who are currently incarcerated and their family situation. And go back to the wellness wheel, and we are looking here at things like aggression, anxiety, depression, all of these things that are and family. So individual has been taken away from the family, a parent, a father, a mother. So we want to look at the prison system as a whole and the individuals that are in this system, and say, look, this is not the end of the line for you. This is a chance to start all over. Once the mission is completed, that you have to provide back to society, you pay your debt, come outside and provide again and be a contribution to society. And we as a society should look at this and say, we want you, even though that you are an ex-offender, we want you to be a part of this society. Unicor is also doing a great job of human resources, I guess. So they're taking the individuals and they have reports on each person, and they're able to talk to potential employers and give feedback about the ex-offender and what it is that they've done, what their experience was, and their behavior was doing these Unicor programs. While Unicor is a federal program that was established by Congress in 1934, the Osborne Association is a New York State initiative with colleges like John Jay College of Criminal Justice, along with individuals who are setting out to help do things like provide family services for children of incarcerated parents and connect those children and their parents back together again. There are several things that this wonderful company does and this association does, and I encourage each of you, you get an opportunity to look into things like the Osborne Association and Unicor and several other of the many associations that are there in order to help those that are incarcerated with occupational enrichment, with life enrichment, to help with all the different variable components on the wellness wheel. Again, not just for those that are incarcerated, but also for the families of those that are incarcerated. Occupational deprivation in prison is by design. It's designed to specifically deprive inmates of the prison system of occupation. It's designed to deprive them of family, of freedom, of certain social activities. It's designed to deprive them of many of the wonderful health things that we see on the wellness wheel. But the question is that a good thing? If we look at it in terms of a correctional facility, are we actually correcting any behaviors? Are we helping people to get better? And all indications point at no, and our concern is providing a sense of hope for not just those that are in prison, but particularly for those who are not serving life sentences that are going to be coming out of prison. There is an increased chance of reoffense for those. That is a concern. That is a stigma that goes along with incarceration, and for potential employers who are looking to bring on new employees. So places like Unicor and the Osborne Foundation are places that that really help to support those who are in prison and coming out of prison to help them develop skills, to help them reacclimate into society, and to provide again for society, for family, for friends, and for their communities. Now, with all of this being said, it's important for us to look at the components of occupation when it comes to overall health and wellness, and that occupation gives individuals the opportunity for increased hope, for something to do when they get out, decreases the chances that they'll be repeat offenders, and allows them to provide for their families. So these are wonderful things that we're going to see when it comes to the ability for occupational enrichment programs to be provided within the prison system. So coming up next is going to be a game, a memory game, a drill, and just take a few moments as the screen continues to play. There will be questions, and there will be the answers down at the bottom. I want you to think about the answers and try to associate the questions with the correct answers, and after a while, those answers will appear in the right places, and see how many you got right. Thank you. Tax dollars Unicor receives for its operations. Zero. Percentage of former offenders less likely to recidivate as a result of participating in Unicor vocational training programs. If you said 24%, you were correct. An unemployed ex-offender is how many times more likely to return to prison than one who is gainfully employed? If you said 3 times more likely, then you were correct. The amount of money federal offenders contribute annually from Unicor earnings to settle financial obligations such as court-ordered fines, child support, and victim restitution is how many $1 million? That's right. $1.2 million. Percentage more likely to find and maintain employment: those that did Unicor versus those who did not do Unicor programs. 14% more likely to find and maintain a job for those who have done Unicor programs once they get out of prison. The typical hourly pay for those involved in Unicor programs is 23 cents to $1.15 per hour. Unicor participation rate is what percentage in the entirety of the prison system? It is 8%, which means the number of incarcerated on the Unicor wait list is 25,000 individuals. Every year, 40,000 individuals are released from imprisonment back into the general population. Those numbers really need to go down, and the numbers of Unicor participation really need to go up. There are many people who are trying to get their industry to work with Unicor, and that we can use all sorts of help in order to make that happen. So if you find this interesting, please go to Unicor and please go to the Osborne Association and find ways that you can help. Thank you.